It's funny. What were you in the parade on Saturday? And was it- What was at the bottom? It was last year. No, that wasn't. Just. Yeah. It was the best people in the school.
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the June 3rd City Council meeting for City of Ellensburg. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I will lead. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, call the roll.
Beauchamp. Here. Goodlow. Here. Lilquist. Here. Elliott.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Okay, we have a proclamation. This is LGBTQ Pride Month 2024, and we have a reader, Mariana Freyer.
Hello, I'm Mariana Freyer. I live here in Ellensburg. Whereas the LGBTQ plus community has long been an integral part of Ellensburg, contributing to its vibrancy, diversity, and cultural richness, and whereas the month of June is internationally recognized as LGBTQ plus Pride Month, a time to celebrate the achievements and contributions of LGBTQ plus individuals, while also raising awareness about the challenges they continue to face, and whereas discrimination, violence, and inequality against LGBTQ plus individuals persist in our society, making it an imperative for us to stand in solidarity with them and actively work towards fostering a more inclusive and equitable community for all. And whereas education, advocacy, and allyship are essential in promoting acceptance, understanding, and respect for people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and gender expressions. And whereas it is the responsibility of all residents, businesses, organizations, and institutions within Ellensburg to create a welcoming and supportive environment where LGBTQ plus individuals can thrive without fear of discrimination or persecution. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Ellensburg does hereby proclaim June 2024 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in Ellensburg. During this month, we encourage all residents to participate in events, activities, and initiatives that promote LGBTQ plus visibility, acceptance, and equality. Let us use this month as an opportunity to reflect on the progress we have made towards LGBTQ plus rights, while also acknowledging the work that still lies ahead. Together, let us commit to building a city where everyone, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity, can live authentically.
Thank you. Okay, we have no awards or recognitions, so we'll move on to item 4, which is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. The consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, motion to approve consent agenda is presented.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the consent agenda, which is page 22 through 152 in the agenda package. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 6A, page 153 in the packet is a recommendation for appointment.
Good evening, council members. Kelly Vandenberg, City of Ellensburg, Arts and Economic Development Manager. It is my honor tonight to do a recommendation for appointment for the City Arts Commission. We had a vacancy left vacant by former Commissioner Blackstock. Tonight's recommendation is based on, tonight's recommendation and approval is to recommend Marie Marchand as the next Arts Commissioner. Marie has spent the last 2 years as our Poet Laureate. And her tenure ended Friday evening. So it is my honor to recommend her on Monday evening to a position for the Arts Commission.
Thank you. There is an opportunity for public comment on this.
I believe Marie may be online as well.
Okay. You're not obligated, but you are welcome to say something if you'd like to.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. This is a tremendous honor, and I would really love to be able to serve in this position to help the next Poet Laureate in their role and continue to help it be successful in particular. But I'm passionate, for poetry and all of the arts. And so I would really love to work with this commission, and I appreciate the recommendation for appointment. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. Are we affirming an appointment or are we making the appointment? Okay, I need a motion from the council.
Mr. Mayor, I move council approval or mayor's approval of appointment of Marie Marchand to the Arts Commission.
Second.
We have a motion second to have the mayor's signature on appointment for Marie Marchand to the Arts Commission. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Two will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6B on the agenda is an I-90 DOT construction projects. Mr. Gonsath. Page 156, if you're following along. It's not me, right?
Here it comes. It's a steps in.
Thank you, City of Ellensburg, for inviting DOT here. I'm going ahead and introduce myself first. A lot of you may have seen Brian White here to make presentations on the I-90 project. He has been promoted to the regional administrator, and I have recently assumed his position. So I am now the assistant regional administrator for construction. So I am here to present on the construction projects going along I-90, and we are glad to be here to give you an update. Just to give you a shot of the overall I-90 and what part is within our region is in the dark line. Most of you already know that, just for anybody in the room who may not. So these are our projects for this year, and as you can see, there's a lot on the west side of the pass, mainly deck repairs, and that's kind of one of the weakest assets recently, or most recently, the aging infrastructure we have. A lot of our decks have been in poor condition, and we have been able to get a lot out to funding. So you can see those projects. The projects are in yellow are some that are still in design that haven't gone out to construction yet, and one of them is the waste station is Cleolum too. So kind of go through some of the projects. We'll start on the west side. There's some of the deck repairs that we're doing. As you can see, we've removed some of the deck already. And as you can see, there's orange spots or some of the stuff where some deep repairs going on. The other photo is of a slope repair we have going on up there, and we're gonna put netting and keep from rocks from sliding down and hitting I-90. So that's another one we have on the other side going on. Our big project has been going on for a couple of years through phase 1 through 2. Now we're in phase 3 of the project is the Easton Hill project right now is currently going on, and that's being performed by Scarcella Brothers for us. This is a little bit older picture, but you can see some of the new bridge shafts going on. This is the old bridge that has been taken out and now is being girders on it to be replaced. So that's a little bit older. This is some more shots of that. The lanes right now are split on Easton Hill. We're putting it up, if you've driven it, putting it up the old, they're still on the old westbound side. We put them both over there. And these are some shots of the new alignment going up the hill on what was the eastbound side. As you can see, there's a couple of bridges there. And then the one in the upper right is going to be a new animal crossing. And the lower one is some work going on some of the rock cuts where we are doing blasting, and that will be actually blasting will start again next week, and we'll have some closures on blasting on Interstate 90. So as you can see, we've started and we're going to keep going. With the new lanes, we'll meet the traffic demand up to Easton and reduce. It's been going on for years, the rock slides, the old pavement, fix the deficient structure. So this is another one we have. Part of the overview of what we have accomplished. We do have some backups and delays. This is kind of over the whole project. People should check traffic conditions before you go. DOT has an app, so you can always check that. Like I said, there are many shoulder closures, lane shifts, detours, and I'm sure Ellensburg knows this is kind of a typical weekend summer traffic. It just starts piling up. Why we're doing, like I said, the bridge decks are in some bad condition. This is a picture of the Cle Elum Bridge decks. This is the eastbound side. We're right now working on the westbound side, but this can shows you how some of the bad shape the bridges have got into up there. So what we're doing on the westbound is we're taking off the old service down to the upper left rebar and pouring it back in segments because of the style of the bridge it is. We can't just pour the whole thing at once. And again, this is kind of overhead shot, and you can see some of the repairs. And we put in a temporary bridge on this because we know how important traffic flow is. So this allows to keep traffic in 2 lanes in each direction. And our goals, the contractor's goal for this one is to get both bridges done this year and get that Apro Bridge removed before winter. Now the project everybody's still pins and needles on is a Vandy Bridge, which we have started on. And this is kind of what some of it is built in 62. The last major repair we did on was 82. So 62 to 82 is about a 20-year cycle. That's about what we always had planned for a major cycle, but you can see that we've kind of exceeded that 20-year cycle by another 20 years. So it's been 40 years since we've done a major repair. And through time, you can know we've been popping holes in the deck and filling them back. So it's well past due to be deck replaced on this. So what they're doing up there right now is they're going in and chipping out a lot of these old spots because of the length of the project. It's going to take, so we want to make sure the deck is in as good as condition as we can get before we start getting into some of the lane restrictions, which I'll get into in a minute. So we have started the project this year, and currently when it was put out to bid, it was supposed to go through 26, but it starts looking like now we'll probably go into the 27 season with the deck repair and replacing the deck on it. And I'll go into some of the issues that we're kind of facing right now. Kind of hit some of these points, preserve the structural integrity before we take it down. Bridge lane restrictions will cause backups. We know it'll cause backups, and we have some plans and I kind of go over the plans we have. And we'll talk about some of the detours that we're encouraging people to travel. And as you can imagine, the bridges are Wenatchee and then Tri-City. So to get across the river, you're gonna have to go out of the way quite a bit. And like always, we're going to communicate as best as we can upcoming events. So, and we've been working with the Kittitas County and Grant County Emergency Services for a lot of what ifs, if there's a grass fire on the hill and stuff. So they have done a lot of preparation for upcoming events possible. So why is it going to take so long? As you can see here, here's kind of an artist illustration of what we're actually going to do is remove the old deck and bring in precast new deck panels and then pour them and stitch them together. So that's part of the reason it's going to take so long. And once you stitch them together, they have cure time. And to keep the bridge balanced, we have to do it in a staged segmental way. So that's some of the reasons it's going to take long. So as you can see, to do that, we have to shift traffic to one side. So we're only going to have one lane in each direction. And to help mitigate that, we're reducing the speed limit across the bridge to 40 miles an hour. I'll go over some of the smart speed zones that we have. And during holiday periods, Memorial, 4th of July, and Labor Day, we're going to have the bridge open to 4 lanes in each direction, which those are some of the heaviest travel days we have. And again, we have multi-agency coordination. The project will probably run from November, shut down from November to March just because of the weather and being able to pour concrete in that. And we do have what WSP help in the work zone. So this is kind of what the work zone will look like when we start removing the bridge deck. As you can see, we'll have traffic going in each direction. 1 foot shoulder, 11-foot lanes, 1 foot shoulder, just to give you a perspective. The normal interstate lane is 12 feet. And the minimum we usually have an 8-foot shoulder. So this would be fairly tight squeeze, or if you like a city street as opposed to an interstate highway. And here's kind of a picture of what we're talking about, the segmental removal. The green ones are what we're contractors planning to do this year. As you can see, there's not a lot of green in there. And the yellow is what's planned for 25 to be removed and replaced. The orange is for 26. And as you can see, when we got into staging, it was figured out that we probably have to go into 27. One of the issues that is pushing us into 27 between Memorial and July, contractors figured out that he does not have enough time to remove and replace that segment and get it open in that time. So right now, unless he can figure out a different operation to compress that schedule, that period of time may be open to 4 lanes of traffic just because he cannot physically get a section replaced in that time. Another thing that's coming up, a lot of agencies have experienced this, is materials procurement. We had anticipated to start the removal of the deck right after the 4th of July, July 8th. That is in question now. The contractor is pushing as hard as he can to get the missing materials he has. A lot of it is steel for under support work that he's doing right now that's not available. So we'll keep everybody informed if that happens. If he doesn't get the material, then we probably will not do the first segment until after the Labor Day weekend. So we will do a segment this year, but it may just be one. So kind of what he's doing right now, I've kind of mentioned steel underneath. He is working underneath, and this kind of shows you some of the issues we have underneath with the piers and the columns and some of the old steel bolts missing and stuff. So that's what we've been doing since we've been starting, is getting the false work under the deck in place. And as we're doing that, we're working on the underneath stuff that needs repair and replaced and fixed before we start on the deck. Talked about smart zone traffic. We are going to be informing people as they travel of the delays on there. This is not the exact sign what it'll look like, but it'll be telling people how long the traffic at the Vantage will be. And we'll have these information signs. There'll be coming from Seattle, there will be one just outside Clallam, so they'll have an opportunity to detour through Wenatchee if they're going further north to their destination, go around. And then the next one will be here close to Ellensburg, so that they have a chance to go to 82 down towards Vantage or Vernita to go around the other way. Our traffic office is expecting that through this signage and people alternating around, so probably can get rid of, they're hoping 20% of the traffic that's going that way. Even with that, on some of these summer weekends with the Gorge concert and stuff, we're expecting a delay up to probably 60 minutes on some of these. So even with the diversion, we're still expecting some delay and we're giving people as much notice. Coming from the other way, just for your information, where some of those signs are, we have one at Britsville, again, let people go down south to the Tri-Cities. Another one is at the, I'm not sure what you call that, the intersection there where you can last road before you go to Wenatchee. It's just outside George, so that they can veer and go up north to Wenatchee to go the other way. And again, stay informed. We have a lot of resources out there for sharing information. So email updates on it and stuff, text messaging. So there's a lot of opportunity to stay informed on what's coming up. So with that, our communications team's email, and again, I'm Paul Gonzalez, Assistant Administrator for Construction. So any questions?
Council, any questions? Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the information. So I was not quite following, you're using precast concrete slabs or basically.
Correct.
I got that part, but what's so you mentioned these have to cure, or there's pouring cement. Is that getting them established, or how does that work?
These are going to be probably 12 to 15 feet, like travel length and the width. And then you place several of them next to each other, but then there would be a gap, and then you have to pour a closure gap on several of these.
You're referring, so the joints, the
joints,
massive
yes.
joints, basically. Okay. I didn't know if you set them in a bed of concrete or something. I was
No,
just trying
no,
to figure that
the
out.
joints between them.
Okay. The only other thing I was going to say is I was thinking about this yesterday as I was heading to Tri-Cities, and I thought, oh man, is the bridge closed? So I opened up the WashDOT app and I looked at the cameras. So both directions, it was wide open. Then I looked on the website and said, Sunday isn't a work day, which was good news for me. But the cameras, I think, are going to be effective.
Yes.
I mean,
But people can see it
Yeah.
will help out. Yeah.
so thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
If
thank
there's
you.
more questions.
Good.
Thank you. Transition to item 6C, which is a community forestry assistant grant presentation. There will be public comment available on this one, and it's page 168.
Hi. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council, for having me here tonight. I am Erin McGowan, the city's stormwater and urban forestry tech, and I'm here to give an update on the Community Forestry Assistant grants. The grants are distributed through the Washington State Department of Natural Resources Urban and Community Forestry Program. Beginning in 2008, the DNR partnered with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to administer state and federal pass-through grants to cities, towns, counties, tribes, nonprofits, and educational institutions to promote urban forestry.
Just a down arrow.
Oh, down here. Mhm. Thank you. The city has completed 2 successful grant applications. The first was in 2023. Ellensburg was awarded $40,000 with a $30,000 match requirement to complete a street tree reinventory, urban tree canopy assessment, and acquire a subscription to a tree canopy software. The street tree reinventory completed a comprehensive update of the city's existing inventory. The consultant collected data on tree species, diameter, site type, location, the presence of overhead utilities, conditions, and the maintenance recommendations for the 5,697 trees in the city's developed right-of-way. The data points were delivered in a GIS file, and we are currently working to set up a public-facing maps so residents and visitors can learn more about our trees here in town. The results of the tree inventory were compiled in a final report that analyzed the field data collected on species diversity, tree assessment results, and maintenance. It also provided recommendations on increasing species diversity, pruning activities, and planting site opportunities. The urban tree canopy assessment and report analyzed land cover within the city limits over several areas of interest, such as zoning type, right-of-ways, watersheds, and census blocks. One of the key takeaways from the report is that the city has 112 plantable acres within the right-of-way. The 3 areas with the highest potential for planting street trees is West University Way, the neighborhood around North Poplar and East Capitol, as well as West Ellensburg. The report also quantified the ecosystem benefits for Ellensburg's tree canopy and its impact on air quality, stormwater, water quality, and carbon storage. Additionally, the grant funded a 3-year subscription to Tree Plotter Canopy, which is a software that builds off the same data and areas of interest as the canopy assessment. The program allows the user to set specific canopy parameters and find areas that have the highest planting potential. It also compares canopy coverage between 2015, 2021, and soon 2024 will be included. If you'd like to learn more about the results of this project, you can find a link to the urban tree canopy assessment, the street tree reinventory report, and the Tree Plotter Canopy software on the city's street tree webpage. So moving on to this funding cycle, in 2024, the DNR saw a tremendous increase in funding. There was a total of $8 million available, $3 million in state funding, and $5 million in federal funding. This is significantly more than their previous single-year record of $550,000. Funding requests could range from $10,000 to $350,000. And there is no match requirement for this funding cycle. The DNR received 120 applications requesting more than $22 million in grants. And in February, the city was one of 45 applicants notified of a successful application. Our application requested $272,500 for an urban forestry management plan and tree ordinance update project. We have an expected period of performance from July 2024 to June 2027. This funding cycle is such a unique opportunity that the initial project scope was expanded to include park trees. We worked with our Parks Department to identify potential projects that would fit within the eligible grant activities. This collaboration is the result of our final project proposal. The first component of the project is a park tree inventory. It'll be Ellensburg's first park tree inventory, and it is estimated that it'll capture approximately 6,000 trees within developed park areas. The information from the park tree inventory and the previous street tree inventory will be used to aid in developing the city's first urban forestry management plan. The management plan will include long-range goals for park and street trees. It'll provide a list of future projects that will improve the tree canopy and increase our tree inventory. as well as produce a fully developed removal and replacement plan for the trees in the historic district to help minimize canopy loss as older trees need to be removed. The project's next phase will be replacing the tree ordinance. To help guide the ordinance update, a stakeholders group will be formed. Through this process, the goal is to establish a new tree ordinance that supports modern urban forestry practices and reflects the city and community's urban forestry values. Once the new tree ordinance is adopted, we will add a new street tree section to our public works development standards. The standards and details will be the supporting document to the new tree ordinance and will go into greater detail about tree selection, spacing, planting, pruning, and tree protection during construction. The last component of this project is the public education and outreach. Public involvement is going to be a very important aspect of this project, and there will be several opportunities for public comment and feedback, especially during the development of the management plan and ordinance update. Additionally, the project will create 5 informational brochures and a park field guide. The brochures will provide updated information on new procedures for tree protection, planting, tree removals, and the Arbor Day tree giveaway program. The field guide for Irene Reinhardt Riverfront Park is probably the most fun aspect of this project. It will discuss the riparian forest along the Yakima River, the habitat and ecosystem surrounding the river, and it'll help users learn to identify the trees within the park. The field guide will be available to park visitors through QR codes, or hard copies will be available at City Hall. So what are our next steps moving forward? I think in the next month or so, I hope to finalize the scope of work, period of performance, and the award amount with the Department of Natural Resources. Once we have finalized that grant contract, it will be coming back to City Council for your approval, and that will probably be in August to September. After that, if the contract is approved, we'll move forward with consultant selection and release a request for proposals in October or November. And then we'll just be ready to move forward with the project. And I can take any questions at this time. If
Council questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
okay.
Questions can go
Let's let
first.
them have the public comment portion here. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on this issue? You just go ahead and stand up, introduce yourself, name, city resident, county resident, other, speaking for yourself and others.
Hi, I'm Sherry Kaufman. I live at 101 West 10th Avenue, and I'm here about a tree area and a little park in front of my house. And I'm so happy to see that this is being expanded, and we are a tree city, and it's just a wonderful opportunity to have enormous funds and have more trees. And I do have a rather large canopy around my house, and I'm just here to speak on that, about my median and protecting the trees there. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody online? Okay, comment.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations on a great grant application. I had the honor of serving on DNR's Urban and Community Forestry Council for 9 years, representing Washington cities. And it took a long time for this money to start moving. We saw this 3 or 4 years ago, starting this way. So I'm really excited that we're taking advantage of this opportunity. And I think the work plan is great. I think you're loading up a lot of best practices. So great job. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, item 7 is citizen. Oh, sorry, Nancy, go ahead. Sorry, we may have a question for you.
Not a question, just a comment also. In the UAC, we look at water use, and we use about 4 times as much water in the summer as we do in the winter. And I keep saying, well, if we promote drought tolerant plantings, we could reduce our water use and therefore our system needs. And John Morrow always says, yeah, but don't forget to water the trees, because they they get planted in the planting strips and in your yards, and if they don't get enough water, they don't thrive. So that's, anyway, just passing John's admonition on. We need to keep watering. Some of our trees are stressed because we haven't watered them enough. So that's it.
Thank you. Okay, we're to item 7, which is citizen comment on non-agenda issues. So as we're getting the list here, I'm going to read the rules. So attending by Zoom or virtually, we did reinstitute that option for people. We did have 3 people apply to participate. 2 of them didn't follow the rules, so they were discounted, and a 3rd member actually submitted a request that's better handled through a different venue. So we will attempt to make contact with that individual and deal with that. So we don't have anybody online. Each speaker's comments are limited to 3 minutes. The total time allotted for this agenda item for all speakers is 30 minutes, which can only be extended by a vote of the City Council. Speakers may not identify themselves as candidates for elective public office, make any statements which assist or discuss campaign of a candidate for elective office, or discuss campaign issues, ballot measure for or against, unless we are considering that, which we're not tonight. Speakers providing comments on non-agenda items may only address council on matters identified in their registration form and concern the city's business over which the City Council has control. When recognized to speak, state your name, whether you live in Ellensburg, Kittitas County, or elsewhere. State whether you're representing yourself or others, and state the topic upon which you wish to speak before making your comments. Speakers are cautioned not to engage in conduct that disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the council meeting. And please note that City Council rules provide no action will be taken by the City Council at the meeting for which the subject is first introduced during the comment period on non-agenda issues. Council may reconsider an item for a future meeting, and staff will follow up with speakers as necessary. And again, if there are any issues, if I interrupt you, we will suspend and return that time for you. Please don't take it personally. It's not intended that way. So we're going to go off the agenda here, and we have William, is it Clement or Glemon? Coleman, sorry. And the subject matter identified as DEI.
Hello, William Coleman, resident of Kittitas. I had applied for the DEI commission and was notified today that I was declined. They gave no reason why, just that they were going to continue looking for applicants and would keep my application on file. You have 2 vacancies, and I was the only commission applicant. Why would they even keep my application on file if I'm not good enough for them right now, given my many qualifications? I grew up a minority in a poor community. I'm blind in an eye and have lived with that disability for over 20 years. I have a master's degree in East Asian history, a bachelor's in history ed, a bachelor's in foreign language, Chinese, and an associate's from YVC. I have lived in China. I took part in 5 study abroad programs during my time at CWU. I have local political experience as a Kittitas City Council member, served on the Kittitas County Conference of Governments, where we dispersed distressed communities grant funding, and just recently served on the county salary board. It seems conservatives are not welcome in diversity, equity, and inclusion settings within the city of Ellensburg government. I was qualified for selection in every way other than my political leanings. Given these discriminatory actions by your commission, as well as the recent episode where Ellensburg City Hall was caught silencing conservative voices on their social media, you are opening yourselves up to a discrimination lawsuit. To avoid this, I strongly recommend that you begin discussions about dissolving the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. The clique that controls it seems to have no real interest in diversity and operates as if 2 wrongs can make a right. This city is on a road to hell, paved with corrupted intentions, masquerading as good ones.
Okay, Monica, sorry, I can't read your last name. Discussing housing. Sorry.
Monica Mercinger, Ellensburg. Monica, do you want to take the microphone down? Yes.
Can you see this? Can you guys see this? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I'm not much of an artist, so I just brought this as an example. I know that this city council with the county commissioner are going to be discussing ways to deal with people in need for housing. And I haven't gotten all of the information, but I've seen photos of emergency cubicles, I guess, that would be for overnight people who needs to get shelter. And I had some things that I wanted you guys to consider. The first is these are white cubicles, and they put them down and they put them in rows or scatter them around. And I really think they really are like a row of teeth. And it seems like if you were doing something like that, that you could have some of our artists in the community or some manufacturer make a design like on this tissue box that would blend in more in our community. The other thing that I saw in these cubicles is they're kind of meant for one person. There's a cot and some facilities. And I was saying, well, what if a woman has 2 kids? You know, how do they fit in? I saw another picture with 2 cots, but it's still not a lot. And what about people who will only come in if they have a pet? What do we do about that? And what if after they get there, they're sick and unable to leave? So I thought that these were some things that you probably thought about anyway, but I wanted to bring them up. And there are some people that regardless of how friendly and offering you are, they're not going to play by anybody's rules, and they don't want your facility even if it's freezing cold. I am concerned about the livability of our community and about businessmen. I don't want them to have to take even more time to be concerned about whether their restrooms being used appropriately or their merchandise is leaving. I don't want them where members of our community would be in a hazardous situation. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm not doing well on names today, but I'm sorry, Julie McConichi? Okay, well, I did better. And ceasefire.
Hello, my name is Julia McConaughey. I am not a resident of Ellensburg or Kittitas County, but I have lived here for several years, and I am speaking on behalf of myself and a growing number of students and young adults from Ellensburg who wish the council to pass a ceasefire resolution on behalf of Gaza. I understand why it may seem like this is not a matter which should interest the Ellensburg City Council as it is so far away, but as citizens of a democratic nation, the democratic nation, we rely on this chain of communication to raise every citizen's voice up. And you are the first step in this process for the citizens of Ellensburg. So I would ask you to consider passing this resolution so that our voices may be heard for higher powers, and that we, as just small individuals in Ellensburg, can gather together and have our voices uplifted first by you to make real change and have a real impact in the world. We rely on you for this. It is part of our privilege, really, in living a society set up this way, that we have these systems set up to raise our voices, but we really rely on you for this. And so I would ask that you please consider it greatly. Also, as a member of the LGBTQ community, it is a hard Pride Month for me and many other members of the community, knowing that there is so much human suffering going on. There were members of the LGBTQ community in Gaza too, and many of them they've been killed because of just prejudice and terrible things. And it is hard to have a Pride Month where we do not also recognize the suffering that is happening in Gaza. So please, once again, please consider passing a resolution calling for immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tim, you made it easy. Tim Cake. Housing.
First off, thank you for having this meeting. I come from the point of view that when I retired, I was working with Catholic Charities in Spokane for about 7 years. And that's a ground zero for community involvement and charities with housing. Spokane's very, and I tell people all the time, Spokane was very blessed with between Union Gospel Mission and Catholic Charities to do great work. But this comes with a big but. The city of Spokane could not handle it. So they turned it over to Catholic Charities. And it's gotten to the point now where the what they call charity house, which is the short-term day, overnight stay facility, is going to have to be moved because it is downtown. And the businesses in that area have raised such a stink. And this has been going on for 10 years, at least 10, 15 years. It's gotten to the point where the city now has not only told Catholic Charities, okay, you have to provide security. We want you out of the neighborhood. So they are now going to move from the downtown corridor, and they're looking for some facility to go to. So my only in bringing this up is really do your homework. Know what you're getting into, because you build it and they will come. And there's not a person in here that doesn't want to help their neighbor. But there is a element that comes with this that is not nice. And it'll come because these people are vulnerable, and there's people who know they're vulnerable and they will prey on them. They're going to stress your hospital. They're going to stress your police, your EMTs. It can snowball into a big deal. So my only warning is please go into this with your eyes open and realize that unless you put some checks and balances in, this can get out of hand real quick. So I appreciate the effort of everybody, and I hope it works out. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie Lang, Low Barrier Shelter.
My name is Angela Lang. I'm an Ellensburg resident. I'm speaking for myself about the Low Barrier Shelter. First off, I agree that our local homeless community needs to be cared for. We disagree as to the solution. What good is a 12-hour overnight shelter when the guest is kicked out to fend for himself in the morning? Being shuttled around all day to be driven back to the shelter in hopes of a bed at night. Is this a viable solution? What happens when the person is turned away for lack of a bed? Where will they go? This is happening in other towns. As the homeless population is increasing in Walla Walla, Vancouver, Seattle, and other cities, they are having to add more sheds or new communities to keep up with the demand. With the installation of these low barrier shelters, crime is up. Vandalism and drug paraphernalia are found all over, and no, these individuals do not police themselves as suggested. There are different levels of homelessness. There is the displaced veteran, the elderly who can no longer pay for bills, families in emergency situations, people being evicted, and yes, drug addicts, alcoholics, and transients who have lived on the streets for months or years. There is a segment of those individuals who cannot take care of themselves, nor can they comprehend what is happening. Some refuse to go into shelter at all. This is not a one-size-fits-all solution. This is a massive undertaking. Will the city of Ellensburg have the finances to continue to finance this endeavor as the homeless population increases? How much more will our taxpayers have to pay in taxes? Let's talk about location. Both the Pathways and Foursquare properties should be discarded to put an unnecessary burden on the local businesses and placing children and elderly in harm's way is really the worst decision you, the city council and county commissioners could make. The elderly should remain safe in their homes, and parents should be able to send their children to daycare without having to worry about their safety. Employees will lose their jobs if owners cannot sustain their businesses. Adding equipment or hiring security for the safety of their customers, staff, and business is a huge expense of which very few businesses can afford to do in today's economy. Can the city of Ellensburg survive without these businesses? Are you willing to risk Ellensburg for the sake of a low barrier shelter? Just like Tim was saying, I truly hope that you consider the ramifications. You had a speaker a while back and he talked about every decision you make today will affect Ellensburg 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. And if you cannot understand or see that, then you should not be on the city council. Please reconsider this shelter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones, and this is on a site application.
Howard, a resident, Ellensburg, native of Cleveland. I in Passage, the organization from a Mueller report in this valley. And I'm at my T's report with instructions on the provisional separation of both mules and processing the trademark at Central Washington, that it's not in the 100-year floodplain for a raffle of sheep and goat.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on non-agenda items? Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 8A, which is a public hearing legislative to consider resolution 2024-17, which would adopt the city's 6-year transportation improvement plan, which would run from 2025 to 2030 and providing annual complete streets updates. There will be an opportunity for public comments after we have a staff report. This is page 174 in the agenda packet. I always feel like you're coming in here for me, Drew, just saying. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. My name is Josh Matson. I'm the Assistant City Engineer in the Public Works and Utilities Department. In accordance with City Code, staff is providing an annual complete streets update. The city is also required by law to annually update its 6-year transportation improvement plan, also known as the TIP, which is adopted by
Mayor, I don't
council.
think you read the hearing script yet. Oh, whoops, public hearing. It's public hearing. Oh, so I got back on.
Good. Don't see one. Procedural timeout. Okay, the purpose of this legislative hearing is for the city council to consider a resolution in adoption 2024-17, which would be the 6-year transportation improvement plan for 2025 to 2030. The public hearing is now open, and we ask for your cooperation in the following procedure. Everyone will be given an opportunity to be heard. City clerk is making a recording of the proceedings. If you wish to participate in the hearings, you must raise your virtual hand on the Zoom meeting screen or press *9 if you are connected by telephone and wait till I recognize you and you have been unmuted. You should then begin by stating your name and address and indicate whether you're speaking for yourself individually or a spokesperson for a certain group or both. Speak slowly and clearly. Only one person will be allowed to speak at a time. Testimony must only address the matter under consideration in this hearing. Any questions of staff are to be directed through council. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for an initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. Mr. Kelleher's not here. Okay. If more time is needed, it will be made available after everybody has had an opportunity to speak. And now we have staff. So sorry about that.
Perfect. Again, yeah, Josh Mattson with the staff report tonight for Public Works and Utilities Department. So 2 parts to the presentation tonight. First part is a complete streets update. And then the second part, and that complete streets update includes 2023 work finished last year and then work remaining in 2024. And then the second part of the report tonight is the 2025 to 2030 TIP report, which includes a summary of various capital improvement project categories. So moving on with part 1, our annual complete streets update. The city adopted a complete streets ordinance back in 2016. The purpose of that ordinance was to ensure that planning for construction of all city transportation improvement projects accounts for all users, including bicyclists, transit, motorists, emergency responders, freight, and pedestrians of all abilities and all ages and abilities. Included in this slide before you now is a list of transportation projects that were completed in 2023, all of which included complete streets elements. This chart depicts the funding sources for last year's transportation projects. From the chart, you can see Ellensburg is heavily dependent on securing grant funding for capital improvement projects. The city is very proactive in scouring many different grants funding sources, including SS4A planning funds, transportation alternative federal funding, distressed county sales and use tax funds, federal surface transportation funds, safe routes to school funding, and transportation improvement board funding. As you can see from the list for some of our current transportation projects, we are committed to improvements that include elements for all transportation users. This list for 2024 projects includes street surfacing improvements, corridor beautification, multi-use pathways, and sidewalks. Our current resurfacing project this year, we are completing a grind and asphalt overlay of University Way from Cleolm Street to the BNSF overpass. This project is nearly complete, should be finished by the end of June. Next, we have sidewalk replacement and connection projects. The Finning Road Shared Use Pathway project is also nearly complete. It fills an active transportation gap between 3rd Avenue and sidewalks near Vantage Highway with a 10-foot wide shared use pathway. The project was coordinated with Kittitas County and provides a direct connection to the cross-state Palouse to Cascades Trail. Continuing on with work in 2024, staff is continuing to complete sidewalks on one side of Alder Street as previously requested by council. A TIB Complete Streets grant was secured this spring to help fill in another gap in the sidewalk on the east side of Alder Street between 1st Avenue and 3rd Avenue this year. Moving on with sidewalk replacement and connection projects, the city is coordinating again with Kittitas County on the replacement of deteriorated sidewalk with paver stones in front of the county courthouse on 5th Avenue. The project includes transit improvements, street lighting upgrades, ADA curb ramps, and additional street trees. The TIB Complete Streets grant I referred to earlier from the spring is also being used to help fill in another sidewalk gap on the north side of 15th Avenue on a school walking route between Columbia Avenue and Cora Street. A traffic calming curb extension will be added with pedestrian crosswalk striping and signage. Moving on with street improvement projects, the Brick Road improvement projects will be starting construction this month. This half-mile section of Brick Road is lacking frontage improvements. The project will widen, install curb and gutter, sidewalks, stormwater improvements, and street lighting. The extension of the street widening and frontage improvements will connect to the existing sidewalks further north and the McElroy Park Trail. This project is also an example of working to listen to our residents. A few years back, we received a petition from many of the adjacent property owners and other community members requesting the addition of sidewalks on this street. Staff was able to secure a federal surface transportation block grant to construct the project. Another street improvement project that will be constructed this year is the Finning Road sidewalk extension. This 3-block section of Finning Road is also lacking frontage improvements with deep ditches. The project will install curb, gutter, sidewalks, stormwater improvements, and street lighting. The extension of the bike lanes and frontage improvements will connect to existing facilities at Vantage Highway and at Radio Road. This project is also an example of listening to our residents through public comments that were provided during outreach for our active transportation plan back in 2019. As with the previous funding slide, our current project list is also heavily dependent on grant funding. A big shout out to our dedicated staff who have done an excellent job finding and securing a multitude of grant funds to help make these projects move forward. So moving on with the second part of the report tonight, we are now going to talk about the Transportation Improvement Plan for 2025 to 2030. Projects proposed in the TIP represent work remaining from previous plans, incorporates projects from the Comprehensive Transportation Plan, the Active Transportation Plan, and several major maintenance and asphalt overlay projects. The adopted TIP may be amended by further resolution by council at any time during the year should changes be required or additional funding opportunities become available. Council can also add, delete, modify, or move the priority of the projects. Annual maintenance and inspection are critical in any transportation system. This is the first 4 projects on the TIP. To ensure safety and efficiency of the infrastructure, this work includes inspection of all bridges, routine adjustments to traffic signals and their operations, and typical maintenance of our street and sidewalk infrastructure. Next, we have street surfacing, pavement preservation, and accessibility projects. Maintenance of our city streets is vital. The city annually completes a chip seal program which preserves about 8 to 10 miles of our nearly 100 centerline miles of city streets. In addition to the annual chip seal program, we also regularly complete asphalt grind and overlay projects on our arterial and collector streets. Street surfacing projects apply an asphalt slurry seal or grind the existing street and install a new running surface with an asphalt overlay. An example of a project we have planned for 2025 is the Water Street overlay. Next year, this project would be done on Manitoba and Water Street from Main Street to University Way. This project also includes ADA sidewalk curb ramp upgrades as needed. Staff is currently seeking grant funds for this project and may extend the limits to Bender Road if additional funding is available. Multimodal projects. As you can tell from the previous list of projects throughout this report, Complete Streets is far more than just the motoring public. Ellensburg is proud to also do our part in planning, promoting, building, and maintaining the many modes of transportation in our community. Improved connectivity. These projects fill in gaps in the existing transportation network. The Reconnect Trail and Sidewalk Extension Project, before you now, will begin the reconnection of the Cross-State Palouse to Cascades Trail on the west side of Ellensburg from the PTC Trail to Bender Road. Sidewalks will also be installed on one side of Bender Road to fill in a gap between existing sidewalks. This project includes curb, gutter, buffer strips, lighting, and stormwater facilities. Intersection improvements. These projects aim to improve or maintain motor vehicle capacity and improve safety for those choosing active transportation modes of travel. The Mountain View Avenue and Bull Road, Willow Street intersection enhancements project will help maintain the city's adopted traffic level of service with increased traffic from planned residential development south of this intersection along Bull Road. The project will install a traffic signal with advanced video radar vehicle detection, protected left turn phasing, flashing left turn yellow arrows, ADA compliant pedestrian crossings, leading pedestrian crossing intervals, and bicycle detection. Moving on to street improvements. These projects fill in gaps in the street network or add urban street elements to existing routes, including street widening, curb, gutter, sidewalk, ADA upgrades, channelization, which is striping, buffer strips, street trees, stormwater facilities. Are we back? Transit improvements, street lighting, bicycle facilities, and landscaping features. A project off our tip coming up is the Helena Avenue improvements. Design for this project is already underway. This is a multimodal street improvements project that will upgrade transportation for all users. The project will complete and construct Helena Avenue between Water Street and the Palouse to Cascade Trail, past Ida Nason Aronica Elementary School. Design is funded by a Washington State budget allocation. Construction funding, unfortunately, has not been obtained yet for this project, but construction is planned for 2026 if funding is secured. The planned 2025 TIP project list is also heavily dependent on grant funding. Staff is still applying for many of the grants proposed for most of these projects. This slide is a summary of planned expenditures on approved projects for the city's traffic impact fee fund over the next 7 years, as shown on the transportation improvement plan. This concludes staff's annual complete streets update and 6-year transportation improvement plan report.
Thank you. The floor is open to testimony from the public. Each person will have an opportunity to address the council for initial period not to exceed 5 minutes. More time is needed. We'll make it available at the end. We will deal with in person first. Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this issue? Is there anybody online? Oh, go ahead. Okay.
I'm Sherry Kaufman, and I just want to say I think this is the most wonderful meeting I've been to in 10 years. Anyway, I think the projects here are terrific, and I think that the improvements to the community with biking and trees and sidewalks and the handicap curves, or whatever, the circles for the blind and the handicap. I think it's wonderful, and you did a wonderful presentation. And I just want to thank you all for doing such a great job. Thank you.
Except for our 15-minute meetings, nobody's ever said we had good meetings. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody else in the audience? Anybody online? Okay, so staff, do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add.
And anybody with any non-repetitive information or evidence? Council, do you have any questions of staff or the public? Public testimony portion of this hearing is now closed. Council may begin its discussion and deliberation. We have a resolution on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move adoption of resolution 2024-17, which adopts the City of Ellensburg 6-year transportation improvement plan. Second. 2025-2030.
We have a motion second to approve resolution 2024-17, which is the 6-year transportation improvement plan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I too will vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes. We'll move to item 9A, which is a resolution 2024-16. Seems a little out of order, which is to accept a donation from Jan Lebo. And this is page 179 in the agenda packet.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Ken White. I'm the Chief of the Ellensburg Police Department, and I'm here tonight to speak about Resolution 24-16. I met with Jan here on the 14th, and she presented me with the check for $10,000. I've asked that the council accept this donation. Some background, so Jan and Skip Lebo came to Ellensburg in 1966. Skip's intention was he wanted to be a police officer. He started with the Ellensburg Police Department as what they called a dog catcher back during that era. Now it is an animal control officer. He did that briefly before becoming a full-time police officer. During his career, he's most recognized as kind of our first school resource officer back before that was actually a thing. He created a coloring book and safety guides for students. He also managed the school crossing guards and a variety of things. Skip was seriously injured in a motor vehicle collision while he was on duty and struck from behind by another vehicle. He had an extended period of recovery, and after the conclusion of that, he came back and was assigned as a detective. He did that for as long as his back would allow him, and then subsequently retired from the Ellensburg Police Department after 20 years of service. And if that wasn't enough of community service for Ellensburg, Skip and his wife Jan took on an additional role of volunteer and mentoring of a lot of our youth in the community, and also working with our senior veterans in the community. And then in 2021, they were both selected to be the Grand Marshals for the Ellensburg Rodeo Parade. Skip died in May of 2022, and Jan has, continuing with her giving, reached out to the Ellensburg Police Department and with the intent of making a donation in honor of both her and Skip's work with the city. Jan wished to donate $10,000 in restricted funds to be utilized by the Ellensburg Police Department. Besides just the Ellensburg Police Department donation, Jan also made generous donations to the Kittitas County Sheriff's Office and Kittitas Valley Fire Rescue. Chapter 2.04 of the Ellensburg City Code governs donations of the city. The donation should be considered a restricted donation per City Code 204-120. The proposed donation will provide additional funding for the police department, and the resolution authorizes the necessary budget and adjustments for this funds.
Are there any questions for staff? This is a public comment opportunity for anybody in the audience. Anybody online? Council?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution 2024-16, accepting the donation to the Ellensburg Police Department from Janet Lebo and on behalf of herself and her late husband, and approve the necessary budget adjustments.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve resolution 2024-16, accepting the donation from the Lebos. Is there any comment or discussion? Other than very public thank you to the Lebos.
Mayor.
Okay. Yes.
I was just wondering if Chief Wade had ideas about how the money would be spent.
The department's going to put together a committee to take a look at how we spend the funds, looking for something that would honor Skip and Jan's contribution to the community. It wouldn't be used to offset any funding or of any programs or any of that. It would be set aside for a special recognition.
Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 You will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. Moving to item 11A. This is an art commission request to utilize commission reserve funding for new permanent piece of artwork. There will be an opportunity for public comment, and this is page 182 in the agenda packet.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Kelly Vandenberg, Arts and Economic Development Manager for the City of Ellensburg. I am representing this evening the Arts Commission request to utilize reserve funding to secure and support a new permanent piece of artwork for Unity Park. Currently, the reserve funding is at $48,000. The Arts Commission has approved unanimously to recommend a request of $46,500 of reserve funding to be used to purchase and install the new permanent piece of artwork for Unity Park. The Arts Commission Reserve funding has always been designated to secure a piece of permanent artwork. The Art Commission felt very strongly about utilizing the funding specifically for Unity Park. The Unity Park Art Action Team was formed to review the different types of artwork and different opportunities for art within that, within the park. The Art Action Team is comprised of members from the Park and Recs Department, the Arts Commission, as well as community members. Renowned artist and sculptor Richard Beyer was quoted saying, "Art is seeing common things transformed by love. The best public art belongs to the story of a community." For those who do not know, Richard Beyer is the sculptor who created the Ellensburg Bowl. So this evening, I would like to recommend a request to move for the council to move to approve the utilization of $46,500 from the Arts Commission reserve funding for the purchase and installation of the new permanent artwork for Unity Park and approve the necessary budget adjustments.
Questions of staff from council? Okay, opportunity for public comment for people in the room.
Right here, exactly.
An opportunity for public comment that they want to use $46,500 for a piece of artwork for Unity Park out of an existing reserve fund, which is effectively designated for that purpose.
Correct.
So that's the proposal. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak online? Council?
Okay. Now, I was waiting. I was going to give somebody a chance. Okay, so, Mr. Mayor, I move, council approve, the utilization of $46,500 from the Arts Commission reserve funding as stated to purchase and install a new permanent work of art in Unity Park and to approve the necessary budget adjustments.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve to confirm the Arts Commission's request to use reserve funding in the amount of $46,500 for a permanent work of art in Unity Park. Is there any discussion?
I would just add observation as the liaison. I've been following from afar and tried to get involved in the discussions too much, but I think the commission has spent a lot of time really, as Kelly had mentioned, really giving a lot of thought to this proposal. And I think everyone involved recognizes it is, and I think it's fair to say it's probably it will be the single biggest action project-wise by the Arts Commission with this kind of funding as a single project. So I think it ties in very nicely with the Unity Park theme and the premier spot that will be in the community. So thank you.
Any other comments? I guess I would just like to add, I mean, obviously the reserve fund is almost empty for a little while we replenish it, but this feels like it was for the intended use, and it's a good project, and we should honor our commissions when they make recommendations when they're inside the guidelines. So there's no other discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed? Did you vote aye or no? Nancy?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That motion passes. Item 11B, thank you, by the way, and thank you. Item 11B, first quarter 2024 financial status and investment report. There will be an opportunity for public comment. This is page 189 in the packet.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Elliott. Jerica Pasco, Finance Director for the City of Ellensburg. Beginning on page 191 of the agenda report of the first quarter financial status and investment reports for the period ending March 31st of 2024. The first quarter 2024 reports were presented to the Finance Committee at the May 22nd meeting. This quarterly report is going to be quick. It's not about detail in this one as it's first quarter, and we're very limited on the amount of information that we have for first quarter. So I just recently gave you guys fourth quarter, which was a bit more extensive, and just a heads up, since there's not a lot of information for the first 3 months, it's going to be a little bit quicker. First quarter projections were made as of the current situation on April 19th of 2024. The projections were made with the hope of the slow cooling of inflationary increases. General fund revenues over here on the left side are projected to come in slightly above budget. This is due to interest that we've received in the investments, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. I will give more information and detail on the rest of the revenues too, beginning on the next page. General fund expenditures on the right column are projected to come in below budget as required. The budgeted expenditures reflect all adjustments that were taken to council for approval prior to December 31st. Therefore, your April 24th supplemental budget adjustments that you saw are not included in this first quarter report. The current slight projected underspending in the general fund that we'll talk about later continues to be created due to some temporary position vacancies. And again, a breakdown of the general fund departments is included on table 7 of this report. So table 2 shows the year-to-date revenue remitted from the state of Washington for sales tax activity. Overall, first quarter revenue distributed through the state for the sales tax activity was down 2% compared to quarter 1 of 2023. Of significance, the city assistance, again, which is a portion of the state's real estate tax distribution, is down 11%. And regular retail sales, which we'll talk about a lot, is down 3%. There is a couple categories that are still holding strong. To note, the hotel motel lodging tax is up 13%. We think right now that's because it took a little bit longer for it to kick back in gear after COVID than the rest of them. We're not expecting it to continue to stay that strong, but we're thankful it is. And marijuana excise tax is currently up 17% as well. Table 3 shows all.
Can I stop real quick?
Yep.
On sorry,
Yep,
this is about
absolutely.
marijuana. But what do we actually get? What is that amount? Is it a percentage of sales, and what does that amount to?
You know, I don't.
And it's dedicated for law enforcement and drug programs, right?
It's a very small portion.
percent. I don't know what the
the
percentage.
tax that's actually collected. Cities get a very tiny portion.
Is that what was promised? Because the reason I'm asking, never mind, keep going. We'll get it later.
Do you want me to follow up with you on that? Like
Yes.
what? Okay. Table 3 shows all governmental fund tax revenues by type. So overall, the governmental fund tax revenue is projected to fall short of budget by approximately 563,000 or 202.82%. The sales tax projections that we used a 5% drop from 2023 because this is consistent with the first quarter regular retail sale decreases, and that tends to follow for the rest of the year. The overall sales tax that we get seems to follow pretty closely in alignment with what our regular retail sale is doing. The B&O tax projections, we used an average of 4% increase over 2023, depending on the utility. And other taxes is projecting a decrease in excise tax. However, the hotel motel tax that I was talking about earlier is in this group, and it's holding strong and projected to come in over budget. So that will bring the overall category of the other category down just below 7.53% under budget. Table 4 breaks down the difference of budgeted less projected by tax purpose. Overall, sales tax is projected to come in under budget for most tax purposes, with the regular and retail almost 600,000 under budget. The regular retail is the only one of these sales tax that's not restricted for a specific purpose. So I mentioned this a lot, and I will continue to mention this trend last quarter, and bring it up again because whenever we need additional funding or have unexpected expenditures arise, we usually use the regular retail sales tax fund to balance that or to fund them. And so I'll continue to bring that up, that it looks like we're going to come in under budget this year for the regular retail sales. Table 5 digs a little bit further into the sales tax by activity. It shows the year-to-date sales tax activity compared to the previous 2 years. Overall, the sales tax is down 3% compared to the first quarter. Retail trade had the highest dollar decrease, with construction showing the highest percentage decrease over the previous year. Regular retail sales tax revenue had a 4.8% overall decrease over the same period last year, noting that that's down from a 0.4% decrease at the end of fourth quarter in 2023. So that 4.8% is what we're using for that 5% overall for the year. And just as example to see where we're seeing this trend and change, at the first quarter of 2023 was up 4% over the previous year. And then in second quarter, it was only up 2.4%. Third quarter, it was up 2.3%. And by the end of last year, it was down 0.4%. And now we're down almost 3%. So we're seeing that quick decline. As mentioned, with the fourth quarter reporting, these decreases still aren't yet alarming or of any sort of emergency, but we still need to continuously monitor them and start to make adjustments where we can so it doesn't catch us off guard. I know everybody's seen a lot of the fiscal cliffs that are hitting in areas around us and governments and cities and stuff like that. And we're by in no means in that situation, but we want to make sure that we don't end up in that situation. So going into the 25-26 budget process that we'll be starting here soon, we'll be bringing that up to council and staff quite a bit and paying attention, very close attention to the spending and the trends that are happening here. Table 6 is your year-to-date utility tax activity. Overall, we're seeing an increase over first quarter of 2023 by about 11.94%. However, keep in mind that the city implemented a new utility billing system in mid-December of last year, and the finance department is still working diligently with our software vendor to continue to work through issues that we're having. This implementation created some delayed billing and additional reporting needs. In addition to that, it created a lot of rebills, and based on the timing of the implementation and the rebills, there's additional corrections and adjustments that we need to do to our cash basis reporting of our first quarter utility taxes for the water, gas, electric, and sewer. So those will be included in your second quarter report, and they will create, it looks like right now, at about a $66,000 decrease to the utility taxes that the general fund will receive for first quarter. Table 7 shows your general fund. Again, this one doesn't include your managerial funds such as your sales tax reserve fund. Overall, if you look at the column clear on the right, the budget less projected, you'll see revenues are projected to still come in over budget by around $617,000. And this is due mostly to, on the miscellaneous line, you'll see there, we're projecting to come out about $500,000 over budget in revenues, and that is due to interest earned on our investments. The lower part of the right column is our expenditures, and we are expected to come in under budget in expenditures by around $564,000. If you go over to the left column, the original 2024 budget column, you'll see that we had budgeted to spend about $1.4 million of fund balance in general fund. Our projection, however, right now, if we stay in line with what we think of the projections of the revenues and we hold tight on our spending, we're expecting to only spend around $226,000 of fund balance by year end. Table 8 shows our current bonded debt. There wasn't any change in bond activity for first quarter of 2024. The top half of it just shows that our general obligation debt, we currently have about $7.86 million of outstanding bonded debt, and our payments this year are around 760,000. Revenue bonds, which are our utility bonds, revenue backed, they have about 23.7 million outstanding, and the debt payments on those this year are around 1.8 million. Table 9 shows the city brought in at approximately 3.7 million more than it spent in 2024 so far. However, 3.33 million of that excess of revenue over expenses is from the utility and internal service funds. The general fund, including the managerial funds that you see highlighted in blue there, saw a net loss of 1.35 million. This loss did include around 750,000 in transfers to the debt fund that we use to make that payments that I just talked about for our general obligation debt. However, even without those debt payments, the general fund still would have seen a loss this first quarter. Investment reports, the city had around 86.3 million in investments at the end of first quarter. 66 million of that we had in the LGIP, which again, I've talked about before, is really liquid, and we have a lot in that because the yield curve is still very inverted. End of interest earned in March was around 364,000, and overall for first quarter, we earned just under $1 million in investments. I did reinvest $1 million of investments that matured in first quarter. Staff recommends that council accept the first quarter financial status and investment reports as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions of staff or from council? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak on the first quarter financial report? Online? Going once? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I will move to accept the first quarter 2024 financial status and investment reports as presented.
Second.
We have a motion second to accept the first quarter 2024 financial status and investment reports. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Nancy? Nancy's a yes. Opposed? That motion passes. Item 11C, page 204 in the packet is Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission 2024 Grant Awards. And again, there will be an opportunity for public comment.
Hello, Nicole Klaus, staff to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. I'm here before you today to talk about the DEI Commission's grants. As part of their 2024 spending plan that you all approved last year, we allocated $6,000 for community grants supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion-related educational opportunities, social gathering opportunities, and access to community resources, all with the goal of creating a sense of belonging within our community. We opened up our grant cycle on March 1st and closed the application period on April 15th. And we received 11 applications with requests totaling $29,610. So like most of our grant programs, more requests than we have funds. Our subcommittee met and recommended approving the organizations and grant applications that are in your packet. So there were 7 applications total being recommended for approval in partial funding amounts, mostly, although some may have been full amounts. So Ellensburg Bail Fund, Eastside Opportunity Ethics Lab, Gallery One, Keene, Rural Trans Elder Conference, and Trout Unlimited. You have those applications in your packets if you want to, ask any questions about those. But the commission at their May 14th meeting voted to recommend moving that list with these corresponding amounts to the city council for approval. And the total is $6,000, which is what we have in our budget.
Council, any questions from staff? Anybody in the audience wish to speak? Online? Council, do you have an action?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Commission 2024 grant awards.
Second.
We have a motion second to approve the DEI Commission 2024 grant awards. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I too will vote aye. Opposed?
Opposed? No.
Okay, that motion passes. We'll move to thank you. We'll move to item 11D, which is a no parking request on 10th Avenue. There will be an opportunity for public comment. This is page 224 in the packet.
Thanks, Drew. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Derek Mayo, City Engineer. Included in your agenda packet is a request from Sherry Kaufman to no park her 10th Avenue frontage at 101 West 10th Avenue. I've had the pleasure to visit with Ms. Kaufman to discuss this request, and I'm now bringing it before council to determine if you would like staff to prepare an ordinance revising the traffic code to honor this request. So over the years, Ms. Kaufman has done a wonderful job of landscaping the median area between the asphalt roadway and the sidewalk. This area has been planted with many shrubs and plants and has sprinkler systems in place to irrigate. Her primary concern is that she has experienced damage to her sprinklers as they stick out of the ground approximately 6 inches, and this is presumed that they're caused by people entering and exiting parked vehicles. The two blocks, as you can see on the screen, the two blocks to the east of her on 10th Avenue are 30-foot in width and have a no parking restriction on the north side only between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Her block of 10th Avenue does not have any restrictions for parking other than the RPZ, and it has a varied width of 35 to 38 feet, depending on the asphalt and the gravel. There is no curb along this section. Although I appreciate her concern for the potential to damage of the plantings and the sprinkler systems, staff does not support granting the request for the following reasons. It limits the public's use of the right-of-way for the RPZ parking, and granting specific requests outside of the downtown core would lead to inconsistencies and confusing parking restrictions for both public and code enforcement. Granting specific requests that could change with each property would further burden our crews in ordering and installing signage to accommodate each specific request. And staff feels that additional efforts could be made to better protect the sprinklers to help prevent them from potential damage, which I know she's been doing recently. So with that, staff request council determine if you would like to see staff to return with an ordinance to accommodate this. And I'm happy to answer questions. I know Sherry is here to speak on her request. So
we'll do council questions for staff first. Okay, comment from the public.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm Sherry Kaufman, and I want to thank all of you for such a great meeting that I can come here and ask you for something that's not going to cost you any money at all, and just a little sign that says no park. And actually, the RPZ parking will not be impacted because my neighbor, Teresa Sorensen, on the opposite side of the street from actually 10th to 11th, there's nobody parks there in the daytime, hardly at all. And so that's a complete block. And then across the street, my new neighbor on 10th Street, they do not have cars. And so there's no parking there, and there's no parking on B Street, which is their property. So all I'm asking for is just a simple sign, which could be actually put onto the pole or post that is already there. So that's not going to be hard for the staff. And as far as granting a specific thing for me, and I think it should be on a case-by-case basis. And there's not very many people that do have a established garden that has any problems. And I have had the help of the council people that have shown an interest and worked with me and come over, and actually all staff and the staff of the city too, in enabling me to come forward with the pictures and the other variants in the neighborhood that I added to you to your pictures that were not on in this agenda. Anyway, so basically I've improved my painting of the curb that we put in. I painted it red, and I've also painted the sprinklers. I put in metal flowers and metal, it was Nancy actually suggested little fences. I have fences, and I also named the garden Ladybug Garden. So it's much more apparent where the heads are. And so I've done everything I can do, but I just need that little no park, which really won't impact the RPD. And it will help the mature plantings and flowers, and it'll be very helpful. So, because it is an expense, not every day it happens, but because there are no curbs on the West 10th, due to the expense of the LID that people didn't want to pay, we put in the curb early on to protect the trees, the mature trees that are there. There are 3 big trees, and we've added many other small kind of bonsai type trees, plus many flowers. I have a list of everything, but I don't want to take up your time to read all that. So thank you. I did pretty good. So thank you. Anyway, appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Did I stay up here? Or just, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, hang out for a second. We might get some questions. Is there anybody else that wants to speak? Anybody online? Okay, council, do you have any questions for Ms. Kaufman?
I don't have any questions.
Yeah, I guess real quick. It sounds like you've taken a number of measures already to protect that garden area. Would it be prudent to see if what you've put in there to be proactive in protecting your garden and sprinklers, see if that works first?
Well, I've done that. The problem is that as the garden has matured over the past 30, 40 years, the sprinkle heads had to come up a little higher.
Mhm.
And so when people, since there is no curb, like on East 10th, I put in the railroad tie, which is like a curb. A railroad tie is rather large. And so that's like the curb. But when you step out from if this was the curb, my railroad tie. And so when you're parking your car, the driver immediately is parked there to the curb. And when they step on the heads, because the heads are at the edge of the street rather than putting at the sidewalk where, a dog or a kid could step on that. We want to.
Sherry, could you move to the microphone? 'Cause otherwise.
Anyway, so there's no curb, and then we put in the railroad tie. And so when you get out of the car where you're parking, and then you step immediately onto the garden because there's no curb. And so when you're stepping on the garden, there's 13 sprinkle heads, and they are tall, but then the little thing comes up and sprays, and it sprays to the garden, not. So if it is impacted, then it's going to spray out onto the street or onto people or dogs walking. So it makes sense that if they don't park there, that they won't step onto the garden. And so it's not going to take away parking because, as I mentioned, there's ample parking across the street on the entire block from 10th to 11th. That's a whole block of nobody. Terry has a garage. The other people have parking, and those people are able to park behind in the alley. But our alley is a little more narrow, and therefore it's harder for people to get into the old-fashioned garages. So this is a historic neighborhood, and if I neglected the garden or didn't water or they were broken, then we're going to have some dead trees. And it seems like the idea of Ellensburg is a tree city, and it looks like the future is for trees and sidewalks and plantings. And I've already established that, and I just want to maintain it. And as I'm older now, it's more difficult to actually do it myself or family. And so I have to have a service. And so when you're having those kind of issues, it's just very difficult. Not only the expense, it's the damage to the plantings. just for parking. And it's much more busier with cars, as I mentioned. You know, we have food delivery, you've got the FedEx, you've got, you know, UPS and a myriad of different people with cars coming and going. So anyway, I thank you so much for the consideration and all the help that I got from staff, and Derek and I talked a lot. So whatever happens, you know, we're not antagonistic. And so I think we're really wanting a pretty town and, you know, and trees. And that's sort of where it's looking like you're interested in having new trees and, you know, protecting what's there. And it is fire safety week, and we don't want high weeds in the medians and dead trees. So that requires water. So thank you. Any other questions?
All good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council.
Well, I'll weigh in just briefly. I'll try to be brief. And I've visited Ms. Kaufman's front yard a couple of times in the last few weeks, and I really appreciate the effort that she's taken, that staff has weighed in and tried to come up with some ways to protect what I think is a valuable resource. And I think, and I would echo, I think what Councilmember Thompson was suggesting, that the efforts that have been taken to sort of identify this area, I think I'm hopeful that will be effective in preserving some of the plantings and reducing the potential. I mean, I think it's recognition when someone steps out of their car onto the railroad tie. If it's as it's painted now, it's going to be more apparent that there's something there they should be avoiding. That said, it may be necessary to add more protective structure around those sprinkler heads. I don't want to suggest, but it's kind of like, yeah. But, you know, I think the thing about this also gives me a lot of heartburn in many ways. And it's that, and I don't disagree, and I will be supporting the staff recommendation on this. But I still, when it comes to inconsistencies, you know, this idea of this, and I will call it a one-off. I think that ship's already sailed, frankly. We just around the neighborhood, I think we could point out several examples of accommodations that have been made. And I'm not saying that was a good idea or the right decision, but it's happened. The no parking zone that was mentioned east of on this block, a couple blocks over, it is interesting because my understanding is that request came from the property owners. And it's also interesting that the restriction is 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And I think it's an antiquated treatment, if you will, because the RPZ zone would effectively accomplish the same thing. But, you know, it seems to me that the street is narrower, but it's no more safe to park cars there in the dark than it is during the light, but yet it's permitted. So I'm kind of seeing that. I think there's I don't know the origins, but there's a disabled parking space identified on the block that seems that someone went out and just painted it. I don't know if the city, no, I'm just running through my thoughts here. Sorry. No, but the point being that I don't know if it was approved by the city or if someone just decided to do it. But the thing, we've got a gate on a city street up in North Ellensburg. That should probably never have happened because it's entirely inconsistent with our street planning guidance. But nevertheless, that's what we have. So I get it. It just seems like it's unfair on some level, but I'm also, like I said, I'm not a fan of one-offs. I think we need to tighten up our code. So I think the other thing about this street was mentioned is the section of 10th from Main over to the next block is, as Derek mentioned, it's unpaved, it's a variable width. I don't know if the curb structure that exists on the blocks east that is narrower by 5 feet or so, if that was ever finished to Main, if we would narrow it down to that width or not. But it seems like a practical approach if that ever happened. But that would, if that were to happen at some point, that would accomplish what's being requested because the curb wouldn't be where the railroad ties are. They would be 2 or 3 feet closer to the road center. that's sort of irrelevant because that's not what we're talking about. But in reality, that ragged edge of 10th Avenue there with irregular pavement, people are parking on the other side of the street in what would be somebody's lawn if we had curbs, right? But we don't. So it's trying to apply a really clean city street design standard to a road like this, I think is challenging. But again, I get it. And reluctantly, I'd say I think it's probably better to do what you can to protect what you've got, but I don't favor case by case treatments in general.
So are you making a motion?
Nope. That was just a comment.
Does anybody need to, let's have a motion.
Well, then, okay. I will, if we need a motion, I would say council should support staff recommendation on the request for the no parking area on the frontage of 10th Avenue, 101 West 10th.
Second.
We have a motion and second to support staff's recommendation for the request for the no parking area at 101 West 10th, which would in effect not create ordinance language that would grant that request. Is there any discussion? Further discussion?
I guess I'll just add to Councilmember Miller's statement that I agree that one-off treatments are tough. What happens if we have a no parking space across the street, but somebody wants to have a space just in front of their home, petition the city for it? So I think we have to have a uniform plan. My hope is that the actions that you've taken will mitigate the issue. But I can't support just the one-offs because it opens up Pandora's box. No,
Yeah, ma'am, you have to go up to the microphone there.
There are many no parks from here to the corner in at least 3 or 4 within my, the ABC streets and the 8th, 9th, 8th is University Way. So it's 9th and 10th and 11th. There are many of those no parks on corners, and I'm on a corner. So what I'm asking for is not really a one-off. There are others. It's very, like you said, it's higgly-piggly, but it helps me to have the no park because I've done everything I can to alert the people. But when you step out of a car, you're stepping onto the median, and the median is a garden. And that's unfortunate for me, but it's unfortunate for the people too, because they could injure themselves. So if I take away the sprinkles, then I have 13 holes and I have, plants that are going to die. I showed you a picture of what it looks like on 9th with a tree stump and nothing. And then there are people growing tomatoes and various and sundry uses for the median. So I'm just asking for no park, just a simple little sign that they probably have, in the area of the garage that they keep their storage, and they have the post, and it would protect people from stepping. And, children are in the back seat or in the passenger side, that's going onto the street as well. So kids jump out. And so I don't know, it's just a dilemma. And I think that just a simple no park that way to the corner would be the best thing. It's not really a one-off. I mean, there's so many one-offs. I could just take you on a tour of the whole area. And it's a historic area. It's the first railroad addition. And it has many names. It's the University District. It's where the president lives 2 blocks away. And it's going down. And if you're trying to improve the rest of the town and you're depleting the greenery that's already established, it seems to me that it's kind of a conflict of interest. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just want to add that the problem with the granting the request would be that homes change ownership, parking patterns change, and unless someone knew they could come to the council and get it switched back, I mean, I don't know the legacy of the one-offs that Sherry has alluded to, but I mean, perhaps we need to look at those and clean them up. I prefer a consistent parking policy, and not treating the street as the extension of a parcels. And it's not it should be the community property. The streets are community property. So that's all.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion, which is to deny the request to push this forward to ordinance language for a no parking, signify by saying aye. So aye is supporting the declination of this request. Signify by saying aye.
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 I too will vote aye. Opposed? That motion passes. We'll move to item 12A, which is the manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Heidi Behrens, Turnaway City Manager. Just a few items in addition to what is written in the manager's report. You have before you, and I believe I emailed out a request for a letter of support from the, let's see here, the Kittitas Conservation Trust application. They're applying for an RCO grant for the community forest program. So, and what staff is requesting is council's permission for the mayor's signature on the letter of support.
Motion.
Awesome.
Second.
Motion second to approve the mayor's signature, which is good because I already signed it. Turned it in. Sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I too vote aye. Opposed. That motion passes.
Thank
Yeah, the
you.
jail.
And just a reminder that the AWC conference is scheduled for later this month. Councilmember Goodlow is registered to attend, and we've appointed her as the city's delegate for voting on the city's behalf. So I haven't heard from anyone else that wanted to participate. And so if that changes, please let me know. All right. And in addition, we are looking for a new location for the joint city county meeting on the 13th of June. Our staff went over to the Armory, and the technology facility is insufficient for our needs for a joint meeting. We expect a fairly large attendance. So we've been working with Central Washington University on a couple of options. I was hoping to have the room secured, and by this evening's meeting, our technology team is going over tomorrow to confirm the best location. And so we'll announce that hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. And so we want to create as much accessibility as possible and make sure that we have directions for folks to get there, and also the ability to participate remotely for that meeting. So a lot of work going into that, and we should have an agenda and meeting announcements out by the end of the week. And in addition, the May 22nd open house that the Joint Ad Hoc Committee created or hosted, we actually posted the Q&A responses and also the comments on the city website. And those were also mailed out to the Ad Hoc Committee, county commissioners, and the city council. And if folks have questions, please let us know. And I was going to share a before and after picture of the Gateway 1 project, but Josh, our assistant city engineer, shared that this evening. It's a pretty remarkable transformation of University Avenue over the last year and a half. Gone from, if it's easy to forget that the utility poles and the utility boxes and all of the things that were above ground that are now below ground, and the the paving has just really cleaned up that corridor. Some really amazing work by our staff over the last few years to arrange that and keep that project going. Just will pay dividends for the entryway into the city.
Into that.
So, and that's all I have for tonight.
Okay, we will move on to council reports and we'll start with David.
Thank you. Well, I'll just added something to my list, just I was prompted by the manager's comment. So just another factoid for University Avenue project. I just talked to John earlier this evening, and it turns out that every tree that was planted last fall, as late as December, survived the winter. So that's a 100% success rate, which doesn't happen very often. So that's well done. So meetings, I was, let's see, I did PTAC last on the 21st, finance on the 22nd. Jerica, as always, gave us a very thorough, very much more detailed breakdown than we enjoyed tonight. So we know all of the details inside the details. And then I attended the Sleep Center event at Hal Holmes as an observer only. And I just appreciate everyone who sat up in the front and did the hard work. So that was, it was a very interesting event. And then Saturday, I was downtown for the market and also the parade. Shout out to EPD for their work in coordinating the route. And I think it went well. It was great to see the community response. Lots of families, lots of kids, lots of people. It was a good day. So thanks to everyone involved. That's all I got.
Josh.
Yeah, mine's real quick. I was on city finance with Councilmember Miller. Jerica did a much better job explaining than I ever could. So hat off to her. I'm always impressed. I had a meeting with the Law Enforcement and Firefighter Disability Board with Councilmember Lilliquist. Those are always fun, meeting in the county courthouse and looking over what needs to be done. It's always kind of funny. Everyone's nice. And then the Landmark Commission, pretty light right now, just a certification of appropriateness for a sign on Main Street. And for the life of me, I cannot remember the sign. I am too tired. The coffee didn't work. And probably the last thing is I know my son's looking forward to Touch a Truck on June 18th. He's going to go nuts. And I'm sure a lot of other kids will too. So I'm glad we've got these type of events there in our community. So that's it for me.
Nancy Goodlow.
Pretty short report myself. I also attended the open house for the ad hoc commission in the
Nancy,
Sleep Center.
Can you put your mic?
Oh, sorry. I participated in an interview for the DEI Commission. We still have 2 more interviews to go in the process of trying to fill a couple of positions. And then we had a homeless affordable housing committee meeting this afternoon. We're starting work with Hope Source on the rewrite of the 5-year update of the Homeless Affordable Housing Commission plan for the county. So that should be interesting.
Nancy Lowquist. I'm going by first name alphabetically, so you guys know. Just switch it up.
You're just getting too creative, Rich. The Left Board, Sleep Center open house, and also went up to Cleveland for the Economic Development Strategic Planning Roundtable countywide effort. It was nice to hear what everyone's doing. The folks from Snoqualmie Pass and Easton joined us and talked quite a bit about the challenges for the LAMRIDs, the local areas. I can't remember what it stands for, but the towns that are not incorporated that are within our county have different challenges than the incorporated towns. So, and just want to say, along with Touch a Truck, there is a bike rodeo, safety training for kids. There's, I think, a few helmets that are available for giving there. Evergreen Mountain Bike group is putting that on, and they are requesting volunteers. So if anyone would like to work with kids on bikes, Saturday the 18th. No, that's not Saturday. Whatever the 18th is. I can give you contact information. So thank you.
Now you're up, Sarah.
Technically, Rich is before Sarah.
I always have to go last.
Okay, we're gonna be back. All right. So I just have a comment. I don't really have much as far as all my meetings are this week and next, but when we're looking at the new location for the joint meeting for the, I think that we should really take into consideration, I mean, CWU is a great spot, but I think we're going to get a lot of kickback if people have to pay to park to come to that meeting. So if there's something, okay, I just wanted to make sure that
I would just add, it's free parking after 5.
Thank you. Okay, because I didn't want that to be an issue. And then I did also go to the Sleep Center open house. I thought it was very well done. And then, of course, close to my heart, Pride was a fantastic event on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to the whole month just being a great celebration for our LGBT community.
Can I add actually a question? So there were a number of questions asked and comments made. And I know that those questions have answers now. Have they been posted online from the Sleep Center open house?
Yes, they have. They're posted on the Sleep Center webpage on the city's website.
Okay, so anyone who was at that meeting and asked a question, your answer is now available.
That's correct.
Thank you.
May was a blur. I missed more meetings than I made. I did go to we are moving forward with Centrifuge and the chamber working together and forming an alliance or a merger in that process. It's not done, but it is moving forward with some understandable kind of trepidation regarding that, and working kind of a little bit behind the scenes on the affordable housing piece just to make sure that we get the public input piece right and that we're looking at all of the elements of this, operating costs, impacts, those types of things. So there's a lot of effort being put into this and very much appreciate the community's participation in that process. And moving forward, just so you know, even though it kind of halfway rained yesterday, and I guess this morning, the incident management teams are up in Washington State because we're starting to see multiple 100-acre fires. So I get off tomorrow morning, so I get 2 weeks off, but so hopefully one won't go somewhere before tomorrow morning. Other than that, we good? We adjourned? Okay.
Thank you.